I want to go back to that subject of small talk. Because every now and then when I'm out in public mixing and mingling with people, people will come up to me, and I don't know if they do this to you, Hope, or maybe they did this to you, Reverend Gill, but they will come up to me. They know I'm a pastor. Maybe it happens to you, Jill Davis. Any other pastors in the room I'm overlooking? Mark. Bill McAlilly. Oh my gosh. Thank God I asked that question. Let me just say about Bill McAlilly, a dear friend of mine. He's also retired. He's going to be participating in our service today. He has his lovely wife, Lynn, with him. You may know Reverend Chris McAlilly, his son. They have another daughter named Laura, and they have 4 grandchildren. Did I get that right? 5. Well, anyway, Bill has been at this church before, preached in our pulpit, and he was our district superintendent way before I got here. I don't know why he thought it would be a good idea. When other clergy were trying to flee the coast after the storm, Bill said, I'll go. And he served as a district superintendent, and he helped with the recovery efforts. And we welcome you, Bill and Lynn. Thank God I noticed you. And welcome Mark Sin. Reverend Mark Sin is Jill Sin's spouse, and he's a retired UCC minister and has added so much to our church. And retired Davis is here too as well. So with all these preachers in the room, you know what it's like. Lord have mercy. So you're engaged in some kind of occasion, and someone knows that you're a pastor, and they come up to you in a lighthearted kind of way, and they say to you, since you're so extra close to God, and you've got all this pull upstairs, I need you to do me a favor. Do something about the weather. My daughter's wedding is coming up this next weekend, and I need you to pray for sunshine. No rain, got it? And I never know what to say to this, you know. I'm not quick-witted or quick on my feet, so I don't have many good comebacks. Usually I'll say something like, not my lane. Or I'll say something like, you know, I don't have that much pull. Sometimes I've said, you know, we're all extra close to God. But I will confess to you, sometimes I have said, at least a time or two, I've said something like, sure, got it. Because I said that because most people, you know, they prefer to just hear what they want to hear. So I've been guilty of that. I think there are 2 kinds of people in life. In the first category, there are these people who are weather conscious. I mean, they're paying attention to the weather. They are studying the radar. They have all these fancy weather apps. They know the difference between the UK versus the US hurricane tract, and they know when a storm is coming. I have people, they are called United Methodist Friends, that I have served over the years, and they would know I'm going to a meeting in Jackson, and they would call me, and they would say, where are you? And I would say, I'm leaving my driveway. And they would say, in 30 minutes and 29 seconds, you're going to drive through torrential rain. And it's true, it happens. But there's another category of people. This is where I fall. These are people that don't know anything about the weather. You know, they're just like, you know, going around busy with their lives. They're not paying attention. But I have come to learn that those weather-conscious people are invaluable. And when a storm is coming here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I've come to depend on this long list of people. And you know who you are: Laura Robertson, Wade Bishop, Peter Burnham. I could just go on and on and on. You get the idea? So all these people, I'm going to hang on to this list. All these people have become invaluable to me because they help warn me. They help us get prepared as a congregation to prepare for a coming storm. They help me. They help us take care of our people and our community. And I'm grateful for you. Isn't it amazing what God does when we love and take care of one another? I suspect the disciples in that boat with Jesus, they knew a lot about weather. They had to have been super weather conscious because they were professionals. At least 4 out of the 12 of the disciples we know were what? Fisher folk. I mean, they would have worked day in, day out in the weather, on the sea, fishing. And so they had to have known about weather patterns and tides and winds and such. And even with all that experience, though, with all that hands-on experience, you would think that they wouldn't be rattled, even by a storm. But the way the story goes, as they are sailing across the lake, a storm erupts. The Common English Bible says gale-force winds swept down on the lake, and the boat was filling up with water. Some translations say that it was about to capsize, and they were in danger. And where's Jesus? He's sound asleep. Mark's gospel points out that he's sleeping on a cushion or a pillow. He's bound to be tired. He was definitely divine, but he was also human. And he's been out teaching and preaching and healing people. He's probably exhausted. He needs his rest. My spiritual director likes to ask me from time to time, she'll say to me, Claire, are you rested? Because she says, you cannot pray if you are not rested. So Jesus is resting. He's out like a light when this storm comes about. And the disciples are very much afraid. And so what do? Come on, participate. What do? They wake him up. And they wake him up with desperate cries. They are screaming at the top of their lungs, Master, Master, we are going to what? Drown. And then Jesus gets up. He rises to his feet, and he says to the winds and the waves, be quiet, shut up. And the seas become calm. Perfect peace, smooth as glass. And then Jesus asked that powerful question, where is your faith? Or a better translation, I think, is, where, church, is your trust? And the disciples are filled with awe and wonder. And they say to each other, who is this that he even commands the winds and the waves, and they do exactly what he tells them? It is a miracle. And I have no idea if it really happened or not, or how it happened. All I know is that it's true, which is why 3 out of the 4 Gospels, and I think even John's Gospel does touch on it, but 3 out of the 4 Gospels tell this same story, almost verbatim, with just a few differences. It must be important. I think this story was very important to the early church because they would have known what it was like to be a small little boat in all this enormous chaos. You see, they were up against the ruthless and unjust Roman Empire, and they were scattered in every city as a tiny minority, and they would have been dismissed and ignored and mistreated and persecuted, and some of them even executed for their faith. And you have to wonder if they ever wanted to throw the towel in. Did they ever want to say, I give up? We're not making a difference. What does our witness, after all, matter? But they pressed on in faith. And here we are, thousands and thousands of years later, and we're trusting that nothing matters more in this world than our love of God and our love of each other in the way and example and spirit of Jesus Christ. It's a miracle. Richard Rohr says this about miracles. It's a long quote, so hang with me. Don't drift away, pun intended. The most miraculous thing of all is that God uses the very thing that would normally destroy you, the tragic, the sorrowful, the painful, the unjust, to transform human souls. And there it is in one sentence, but are we prepared to trust that? I think of all the challenges that First United Methodist Church of downtown Gulfport has gone through. We have weathered our fair share of storms, both literally and metaphorically. And you know me, I'm so methodical. I've kept a long, 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 long list of all that we've been through. And here's what I've come to believe. We are better. We are better for what we've endured. We're braver. We're more understanding. We're more welcoming in a sincere kind of way. We're more generous. We're more compassionate. We're not perfect. We've still got a long, long, long way to go. We're not the largest church out there, numerically speaking. We're not the wealthiest. Diane, I know you want us to be wealthier. I do too. We're not that congregation with all the bells and whistles that's the most entertaining, but I do believe that we are better and more faithful, and oh my, how we've grown, especially this person. We have grown together in God's grace. And I think it's because we haven't forgotten who's in the boat with us. Jesus Christ, our perfect peace, crucified and resurrected. I don't know what happened to those disciples when they finally got on the other side of the lake. You know, we don't get to know everything that happened to the ancient people in the Bible and those first followers of Jesus. There was not someone there with a fancy smartphone, you know, recording everything and putting it on YouTube. So we only get snapshots of what happened. And none of the Gospels tell us what happened when they got to the shore safely. I know what I would have done. I would have climbed out of that boat, I would have gotten on all fours, and I would have kissed the beach, and I would have said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, God, over and over. Which leads us to our second reading, and I'm about to close. Psalm 107 tells us about some sailors who were in a boat, and they were in a crisis, another terrible storm, and God helped them. God saw them through. And here's what they did. They said, thank you. The psalmist says that they rejoiced and they were glad because the waters had calmed down and God led them to the harbor they were hoping for. This week, I was looking through news archives. I was going through a Google search, and I wanted to see if I could find some articles about Hurricane Katrina, the United Methodist Church in Mississippi. Found a wonderful article that references this church. It was written by Woody Woodrick, September 5th, 2005. I'm going to read the first 3 short paragraphs, so keep listening if you will. When September 4th dawned, many United Methodist churches across the Gulf Coast held Sunday worship services. They held services despite their lack of electricity and water, and in some cases, stable buildings. But the services were held, giving those whose lives were irrevocably changed August 29th by Hurricane Katrina a chance to grieve, question, and give thanks to God. And here's a quote from one of our members who's here today, up in the balcony with her husband Robbie, like she always is, Sunday after Sunday. But here's the quote. Being here gives me a sense of peace. Peace in my heart that everything is going to be all right, said Kathy Gilmore, who attended, as did many of you, one of the 2 services at First United Methodist Church in Gulfport. The quote continues, I wanted to be with people. I wanted to be with the people I'm used to worshiping with. It gives a sense of normalcy. It gives a sense of feeling that everything is going to be all right. The good news is that yesterday, today, and forevermore, God's love endures. And so, in the spirit of God's people, let us thank God. Let us thank God for God's faithful love and God's wondrous works for all people, because isn't it amazing how God works when we love and take care of one another? So be it, and so it is.